highlights and they appear much more realistic and lifelike, I would say. And when you look at things like the specular response from jacket, those things are much more true-like as well.
What do you mean specular response? True to light? That's a separate person! This can't be normal. We can't be embracing this. What?
Something is wrong. I'm feeling that deep, uncomfortable twisting again. The disconnect from the reality I know to be real, or at least the one I thought was real, and what so many others believe, that gap is widening. These things keep happening. I've got to do something. I've got to make something. I've got to process. Maybe I'll write. Well, that was the darkest thing I've written in a long time, but I'm not sure I feel any better. I still don't understand this path we're going down. I still don't understand who wants this.
Gotta get out of here. I gotta go.
Fight or flight engaged. Flight wins. Can't stay here. All around the technology connected to this insane world, stuck in my box near the threat.
There's my wheels.
Roads. They take us to new places. Places we want to go. Places we've never been. Places we didn't know existed. Sometimes they even bring us back home. Trees, nature, sunset. For now, at least, despite everything, the world keeps moving along at its own pace. Still, that pace isn't what it used to be.
Now to that record-breaking heat wave smothering the West. Cities like Las Vegas and Denver are shattering their records for the month of March, and more records could be broken this week.
Prairies, wetlands, hills, and mountains. Wildlife. This beauty, this precarious balance, this world is still worth protecting. It has to persevere. This all matters so much more than JPEGs of monkeys or setting up shop in a VR universe. I keep driving. Rocks, cliffs, mountains, forests. You can generate a facsimile of this with AI, but it doesn't even come close to seeing these places in real life. The sounds, the colors, the smells, fabricated pixels on a screen from millions of stolen images can't convey to you what it really feels like here. It can't impress you with its vastness. Instead, it simply threatens to destroy it. When there's so much to experience in life, so much to see for the first time, connections to make, rocks to climb, and mud to get stuck in, who would want to replace that with an illusion? A fabrication? It's at this point, seeing how this particular sunset colors the sky, shrinks behind these trees, and shines on these rocks, that I feel inspired to create again. Being at one with the world drives me, pushes me to make something, to give back, to in some small way communicate the impact that feeling it beneath my feet has on me to my fellow humans.
While I'd love some skill in traditional painting or illustration, the camera is my go-to instrument of choice. Film, digital, doesn't matter. The brand is also of no real consequence. As long as I have some glass and a frame to capture the light in, I can get to work. I shoot not just to create pretty aesthetics, although that certainly can play a role. I shoot to share my perspective, to highlight the little things you might pass by, to illustrate the way that light artifacts in my own eye, to note the human behavior that often gets overlooked or written off.
This act of creation is sacred. It's one of the few things that separates us humans as sentient beings from other living creatures, and one that has played an immeasurably crucial role in the rise and fall of our civilizations. My own creation process is just as crucial to myself as an individual, though far more humble in scope and impact. Whether I'm here on a cliff in the forest, or out on the streets, whether I'm underwater or above it, whether I'm local or far, far away, I can use a camera both to capture the daily joy of life, but also to help evaluate the differences between how I perceive the world and how it's measured by a computational machine. I've always processed life through a lens in some way, for as long as I can remember. This little boy loved documenting his life, his favorite things, and his favorite people, as a Polaroid or 4x6 tended to be far less fleeting than a moment or a memory. He'd use it to make himself look cooler than he was, and more lame than he was too, and explore perspectives his eyes couldn't allow for. This girl, on the other hand, preferred videos to photos, whether it was reenacting play, reliving moments that would cease to be remembered otherwise, or exploring storytelling. This weirdo managed to build independence but wasn't quite sure of his path. Still, knew exploring the paths before him in the real world would help him figure it out. This new dad learned to appreciate the little things again and began to find unspeakable joy in the process of capturing life's beauty.
What it mustn't be like to not be able to see, to not know the value of a heart, a mind, the original thought, the very idea of original thought. To just be stuck in a cave, consuming noise, consuming what? Blurry artifacts of everyone else's ideas mixed together? Is that what you want? Is that all we should have left? Because if we keep using up all the water, all the power, and just remixing old ideas instead of letting new voices be heard, there will be nothing left to hear at all.
The process of creating is just as, if not more, important than the output that results from it. Taking in the moments, seamlessly entering and exiting flow state the moment something catches my eye or an idea manifests. To feel what it means to do the thing offers value to one's mind and heart that can never be replicated by asking a computer to make it all up for you.
Every once in a while, there's a big enough change, a big enough shift in the public conversation about things and the technology that's made available and in the mindsets of the people who are pushing the technology onto us, that it makes me step back and it makes me question everything. My complicitness in it up to this point, my own personal interest levels, what I'm expecting out of it, and why I got into both making art and making things online and sharing them, and even just enjoying technology in the first place. NVIDIA's DLSS 5 reveal at GTC really, this was one of those moments. Not where I saw the future of technology and how it could better our lives, but where I saw that on a fundamental, almost incommunicable level, we have missed the point. We have lost the point. Because if you can't see how this destroys everything, then there's no common ground to stand on. These are the kinds of shifts that push me further and further back away from technology, back into the real world, but back into making art with my hands. Because we need more of this online. There's a lot of talk online about the dead internet theory. The internet can be alive. We just have to take control back and put the life back in it, the humanity back in it, as everyone is set on stripping it out. And as someone who makes things on the internet, you should try it sometime. It's almost impossible not to feel like your own humanity is being devalued or stripped away when we try to take it away from what's available and what the masses consume or what we publish to the world. With everything we consume, the human element is the point. Whether you're reading, watching, listening, looking at, the human story is what makes it interesting. Jokes are funny because we can relate to them. Drama is compelling because it's a situation we could put ourselves in the shoes of. If it's a computer generating these things, there's no new ideas. I think about this in the context, which we talk about on the DualCon podcast all the time, of YouTube video cycles. When they start generating their YouTube video ideas and their titles and their thumbnails based on what's already been made, people don't grow, they don't progress. And you get to the interesting parts in life and in stories through that growth and progression. When someone has been struggling with their investment into their gaming hobby, for example, for a while, and they start addressing problems of backlog or enjoying games again or whatever, that is an interesting step in the journey. The problem is when you're only making things based on remixing what has already been produced through a computer, you're going to keep regurgitating the same point over and over and over, never learning about yourself, never growing, never adding to the conversation. And when you're not adding to the conversation, when you're not putting something back in, it's not interesting. It gets you stuck. It's actually malicious because it sticks you in the same spot. And the people who relate just keep getting a cycle of the same message over and over and over again. When you don't evolve what has already been made, you're left with nothing. You're left in the same spot in life and in the journey. And if you're happy being there, then what the hell was the point of all this?
More driving, more exploring. The cave humbles me, seeing how the forces of water carved out the very ground that holds us up, yet receding to make room for us to witness its power. Even more humbling is seeing the literal heights past humans went to just to leave their mark on this impressive place for decades to come. Eventually, once it's clear that I'm far away from home, with nothing around me in any direction, I finally start to feel at peace. I don't think it's fair to say that I was in the middle of nowhere. Very few places on Earth are truly nowhere. Just about everywhere is somebody's somewhere. The vast emptiness occupied in reality by human ingenuity and the often unseen infrastructure preparing to feed our society for the coming seasons allows me to exhale my stress wider than I ever have before, and the weight on my shoulders reduces to only a tingle of soreness to remind me of what once was heavy not too long ago. Still, I'm plagued by this burning question. Having reaped the benefits of creation my entire life, whether it's cringy drawings from a shaky, untrained hand, rough music made from sheer inspiration but no attention span for practice, building things, painting things, cutting and pasting things, designing things, photographing or filming things, acting out things, or simply making a big mess. Once you've done it a few times, the mental and emotional value is unmistakable. Hell, even the act of writing the lines for this video, even the recording of them to a microphone, constitutes creation and expression. Every wording of a sentence, every placed breath, every catered tone is me building something for you to see through my eyes, to hear through my ears, to feel through my skin. Whether another living soul receives output from what you've made or whether the thing ever even gets finished at all, the very act of trying to make something is more valuable than anything you could ever consume. So why are we so quick to throw it all away? Why do we see no value in human effort and ideas, ideals, expressions, and connection, in conviction and execution, in art? Why does everything need to operate as a profit machine, raising the ground, leaving nothing left? Why does every hobby, passion, interest, and pastime need to become a monetized hustle, trying to milk subscriptions from people just trying to pay for groceries, trying to squeeze water from a stone? Why do we insist on chasing realism without understanding anything about what that means? What even is realistic when our capacity to understand that and to convey it on a technical level is ever changing? When realism becomes a scam, when the results are filtered through algorithms trained on stolen work, when representation of female bodies skews white, skews heavily faked, and is even primarily based on pornographic material, when it's trained on hyper-real or surrealistic creations, things not actually meant to represent real life but more a fantasy. How many minds become corrupted, unwilling to accept reality because it doesn't look as good as what's on their computer screen? And how do you convince them to put away the magic box, that the magic itself isn't as real as they believe when they think it holds life and sentience and a personality as valid as their own? How do we continue treating such people as normal and not as if they're just as deep in the psychosis as those pulling entire religions out of the code, when the very supercomputer training they believe they're taking advantage of was in no small part actually still the work of humans anyway? When they believe they can erase human creativity with realism via a machine, and that machine is projecting a fantasy so deep that even the idea of its capabilities itself is a fantasy. How do we survive?
How can we have come so far as a species, carried on the back of art and creativity for our survival, from our days living in caves, to our days tracking the stars, to our current days of blocking them with satellites and smoke? How can we be so quick to throw it all away?
Tracking the stars the natural way, through measuring their impact, the passage of time, and the alignment with our planet. There was a time when understanding our real world was more important than anything else. This pursuit of perfection is nothing new, but we usually learn our lesson. In the photo and film world, we spent a century chasing clean images free from artifacts, only to realize how boring and sterile that is, choosing to re-engage with less perfect tools and mediums that give it character. Films continue to be remastered with such aggressive denoising that lifelike human actors get turned into wax mannequins, and we learn to appreciate the original grain and noise. Something being of its time holds far more value than it being of no time, with no humanity. Hopefully we continue to learn lessons. It's hard to not feel like the systematic destruction of artistry in favor of a flawed pursuit of realism is just a literacy issue, but it's one we seem ill-equipped to handle at the moment. While there are probably more than 13 ways to look at a blackbird, everyone connects with something from the media they love. Some part of it resonates with them, even if they've somehow refused to listen to the words and think about what they mean. This only happens when a human is making the thing, when a human is remixing their own inspirations with their lived experiences and perspectives. Even when someone's inspirations are a bit more on the nose, we still get art that makes an impact on generations of those who look at it. If we erase artistic intent, art entirely, and just accept a layer of slop smudged all over the original creation, like with NVIDIA's new incel shading here, artists won't be hired anymore, and we'll just eventually run out of new stories, new ideas, new perspectives. And if there's nothing new being made by humans, the AI starts eating its own tail, which we've already seen. When you have AI plagiarizing itself, ideas really crumble out of control. Spending the night of the equinox gazing at the stars from mounds built by my ancestors to align with our seasonal changes was mostly a happy accident, but it felt like destiny. The sunset wasn't as pretty as the night before, but it's impossible to complain about the view and the experience. As I got lost in the truths of humans who valued taking care of each other over independent feats and found myself swimming in the constellations above me, the same questions still itched at the back of my mind.
If we're not reading, watching, listening for the human element, for the heartache, the love, the loss, the ideas, what are we doing any of this for? Is it just for noise? Is that all you need? You don't need a computer to make that for you. You can still use what humans make for noise. It's easy to get lost debating the technical details here, but nothing can be gained from participating in the scam. Qualifying snake oil does nothing to dissuade those who have already been conned.
Websites made for the sake of having those 3 letters following a dot, servers sold as meteorological entities, decaying links to JPEGs traded as more valuable than the stocks of real companies making real products, or basic Pavlovian training paired with legal piracy and plagiarism at unspeakable scale. To bless the con with your gaze is enough alone to give it validity, and to acknowledge it in good faith is to have already lost. Yet this time, we don't have much choice. Everything around us, even sites and movements originally dedicated to human work, seem to be bending the knee or begging for shares of the made-up profits, and our voices seem to hold no power over the believers. It was only recently that I traveled in a different direction to be with the public in a hearing about data center legislation and the sneaky tactics to slide in dozens of data centers in the Midwest without public approval, raising utility bills and destroying infrastructure in the process. All to let your mom make a goofy emoji of herself or let real estate agents mislead you with their property photos. Despite attendance originally being agreed to, elected officials were nowhere to be found at this public hearing. No one seems interested in saving us. Nothing is getting any better as a result of this. No one can tell you how it might, and even grandmas in small towns are feeling things getting worse instead. Websites are getting harder to use, services are getting knocked offline more often, apps are getting slower and crappier. People can't even identify birds with their phones anymore, as the automated processing is mucking up the markings on them. Google is replacing headlines of your search results. Everyone seems to know what's best for you, forcing their solutions without problems onto everyone. We're destroying our state infrastructures, building data centers on contracts made based on business that hasn't succeeded yet, providing services nobody is using, filling them with promised hardware that hasn't been manufactured yet, and all I can think while watching literal insanity spread to everyone around me is...
What is the point?
Roads. They take you to some weird places, often dark ones, but they do eventually bring you back home, if you let them. It's only fitting that upon coming home from a trip wherein the temperature was in the 30s Fahrenheit when we left, and we were wearing coats, mind you, that it jumps up to 87 degrees to give us a nice March summer day where we want to play in the water, just to help ring home how precious this balance we need to protect really is. It's apparently easy to just go along with new tech and decisions made by those with money around you. It's a little more difficult to start asking meaningful questions and really sitting with the implications of devaluing creativity, devaluing artists, and deciding that we're all okay giving up all notion of artistic intent, or even in lieu of that, simply giving up all notion or caring that there even was any intent at all beyond occupying your mind so you stop thinking altogether. It's even harder to keep sitting with that every day and to choose to do things another way.
I'm doing that. This year, I've reinvested in my own sites and communities away from big tech and corporate platforms. I've moved primarily to distributing my own work through sites that I own and control first and foremost, with syndication to YouTube or others coming secondary. I'm refusing to use any services that require my ID to access them, even if that means abandoning popular communications tools. I'll be distributing some of my work exclusively through physical media instead of streaming on video websites or whatever content providers. I'm going to keep advocating in my local community for us to get our shit together. I'm also going to keep having these conversations with real human beings and see where they go.
If you couldn't be bothered to make something, I can't be bothered to read, watch, or listen to it. I'm going to keep making human work for human beings because it matters to the real human beings who receive it. The day I outsource my creativity, my own thinking, my decision-making to a computer playing word association is the day I hang it all up and disappear.
I also just want to note that creating is hard. The act and the intuition can be very easy. Putting yourself out there, though, can make you vulnerable and can even be dangerous. It gets that much more difficult and hard to engage in when the entire world seems hell-bent on being hostile to those of us who do it. But to get through it is to make all the difference to someone, and it's still worth trying. A quote from James Baldwin rings here. It took many years of vomiting up all of the filth I'd been taught about myself and half believed before I was able to walk on the earth as though I had a right to be here. Let's keep the internet alive together, or start building alternatives together. I'll be participating in both camps, as I'm pretty stoked on things like Meshtastic, offline wikis, and Reticulum as of late for building up these alternatives in times of need, or if we just need to abandon what's here altogether. Humans survive by staying together and staying connected. Remember to be kind. Rewind.